Thanks for tuning in again, everybody. We're back with your favorite podcast, Lucas, Tigers, and Bronze. Oh, my.
Ladies and gentlemen, our ever-growing community of Luca Nation fans. We have a repeat guest, someone you guys might know. I think he was our first guest, actually, on Luca Nation.
First one.
Yes, he was. And this is a man that basically created his own market of wrestling cards, and now everyone's following. They should pay him royalties, as Kevin O'Leary says. But without further ado, I want to welcome back David Peck. A lot of you guys asked for him to be back on. David, Mr. Peck, how's everything going?
What's up, guys? It's a pleasure to be back on, and I'm excited for you guys as how successful the show has turned out to be. I mean, if you look on Instagram, Twitter, number of followers, the comments in your videos, I mean, it's off the charts. And the fact that we're reconnecting, I don't know, 4 or 6 months later, is just a testament to how well you guys have done. So congratulations.
Thank you. I wish I could take credit, but it's really the big lug over there. Everywhere we go, whether that's on Clubhouse, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, people love him. They even send him DMs like he has the best voice in the game, never get off radio. So Cage, I have one question to kick us off. And then I want to let you guys run with it because there's so many topics, But if you guys don't know, Mr. Peck, David Peck, he's a financial guy. And there was a big deal this week with Ken Golden getting $40 million in a cash infusion. And we were talking a little bit offline on Twitter. Just what do you think something like that means when there's so many celebrities coming into the game, putting money behind a consignment business? What do you think is going to happen? How do you think it's going to play out?
Well, I tell you what, first of all, it's obviously very exciting because if you read in their press release, they're talking about really taking that to the next level as far as not just top level consignments, right? I think one of the things that people have to understand is that the social media phenomenon in trading cards has been massive. We talked last time about the Gary Vee effect. I'm a Gary Vee fan, so I fall into the category of liking what he's doing. Just this past week, I think it's Deshaun Johnson. Is that the guy, right? The
Jackson.
Jackson. Yeah, I'm not a expert. It's kind of embarrassing. I didn't even know who he was, and it turns out he's like one of the stud quarterbacks of the NFL. But when you get a guy like him, not only paying top dollar for a card, but then I love the term, I use this all the time, flexing. He flexes it on Instagram. He puts it on Twitter. I do a post of my Dwayne Johnson and I get, 71 likes, right? Okay, great. He had something like 71,000 last I checked, and then like 600 comments. And, you see loads of blue check marks in the comments section. So I think what's happening is that you're seeing money coming into the hobby from so many directions. And, if you start getting some of these pro athletes, put serious money behind it, the sky's the limit. So I've been a long-term optimist on cards. I'm excited to be, part of this. If you think back to even just 2 years ago, the market was nothing like this, and not just price, but activity. Your show, for example, I'm sure that as weeks go by, the number of views goes up. One of the things I'm pretty active online. I comment, for the most part on the PSA Collectors Universe message board. Think of the number of Instagram accounts that have been created dedicated to cards. Think of the number of Twitter posts and just sort of activities and people engaging. So, the community is growing dramatically. The amount of ability to communicate with others is growing dramatically. And I just think that, for the next period of time, people keep talking about a bubble and this can't last. And, hey, listen, time will tell. I'm not here to make that prediction. But what I will say is that when you see PSA with 13 million cards graded in a 12-month period of time, this thing's not dying overnight. So I've had a great time, and I just hope that, we all continue to enjoy the hobby, and we'll see where this thing goes.
So I will just jump in here with, it's an apology to David because he was our first guest. And the first guest did not get the play he should have gotten. So you're coming on a perfect time. Last night we crossed over 100,000 listens for our podcast. And, so a lot more people are going to hear you this time. And I got to tell you, I get a lot of messages. Wow, I went back and I listened to all your guests. And that David Peck guy, what an amazing, amazing episode it was. I'm going to ask you something we didn't ask you last time. And it's even more relevant now. There is a lot of what we'll call chasing alpha, seeking alpha for you traders out there, right? Everybody's chasing what's going to make them money, right? We had a guy, Darren Herman, on, right? And he used that phrase a lot. Everybody's chasing what's going to make them money, where the money is to be made. And it has become a huge thing over the last year or so. Modern was going up, and then vintage went up, and then vintage was going up, and then Pokemon was going up, and then Pokemon was going up, and wrestling and UFC, and everybody's looking for what's that next big thing. Now maybe it's Marvel. Who the heck knows? So here's the insight you can bring. There are people out there who are trying to figure out what the next best thing is. What's going to pop next? Whether it's, I have no idea. Honestly, I don't know what it could be. Whether it's some Japanese anime card or I have no idea what could be next. But you, years ago, were the guy who said, I think wrestling's going to pop. And it didn't pop that week. It didn't pop that month, right? So what you can tell Luca Nation is, because there's people out there saying, I'm going to take a gamble on something. I believe in this area of the market. I believe in this corner. I believe this is underappreciated and undervalued. That was you with wrestling. But it didn't pop right away. So can you do me a favor and talk specifically to those folks, those people who are they're doing their research and they think they found something that's going to work. Tell them it doesn't come in 10 seconds. Tell them some of the stuff you had to kind of deal with. Tell them about the stories that you have about getting on the blowout forum and saying, hey, this is going to be great. And people are like, you're insane. Talk to about that, because I got an echo in my ears, and I apologize, Luca Nation. I'm going to go switch my headphones and let David speak and see if I can figure a way out of this stuff. But go for it, David, because that's, I think, the best thing you bring to the table, because you were so right. But you weren't right off the bat, right? It took a little minute.
Well, I think, listen, I don't want to tell anybody how to collect, okay? And I think that, like you, I've been a little bit surprised with this sort of rotation where it's turned into a paper chase, and oh, wait a second, what's the next thing to pop? I can't tell you how many messages I get on Twitter, on Instagram. It says, hey, do you think this is this one's the next one? Well, the bottom line is the long term is really where money's made in cards. I get it. There's examples of people that buy something, and the second they buy it, it explodes. I'll give you a good example. I was the first person to actively grade the '94 Miami Bumblebee set, looking for the Dwayne Johnson. And there had been maybe 2 or 3 other graded examples in the hobby before I got involved. And so I tracked down the Dwayne Johnson, and those things they went up a little bit at first. And then what happened is a lot of the high grade material was found, and they collapsed. And so I sat there for 5 years, and the Dwayne Johnson Bumblebee card was my worst investment. I had not picked anything that bad. Now, thankfully, I bought a PSA 10, 3 or 4 years ago. I had a BGS 9.5. I had a PSA 9. I had the signed one. And so, I said, okay, I got to get my 10. And so after I bought the 10, it dropped another 40%. I was like, Jesus, I'm jinxed with this card. So we all make mistakes. When the thing really started to explode, 6 months ago, I ended up on selling a couple copies, and it didn't work in my favor, because now look at it. But I think really trying to time cards is very challenging. And my take is I try to sit on stuff for a while. When you look at wrestling now, just about everything in wrestling's been going up. The 85 Topps Hogan, for example. It was a dead card for a long time. Now it's hot as a pistol. Just in the past 2 weeks, one of the areas I focused on for the last 11 years was Brock Lesnar. We've seen a 10x move in Brock in 2 weeks. Now, I don't know, time will tell how that plays out. But, you could be sitting on a stick of dynamite for years and not even know it. So go back to, when I was on your show last time, we talked about Mike Tyson. And this was literally, I don't know, 2 weeks before Tyson just started moving. I'd been in Tyson for 10 years. Okay. Now they had gone up and, I was sitting on some gains. Well, the Tyson is gone up 30x in 6 months. We'll see if it continues. We'll see if it holds. Time will tell. I've never pretended to be good at, projecting where prices are going to go. I actually don't think anybody's good at it. So I think what you have to do, approach cards in a manner that works for you. I'm a long-term investor type. I'm not into the quick flip. I understand it. I totally get that. We were talking before we went on air, and I love to day trade, right? So, for me to hold a stock for 2 or 3 days is like an eternity. So I understand that psychology is coming to cards. But what I found is with cards, it's a lot easier to make money when you buy something that you believe in and you sit on, So I don't want to discourage anybody from the flip game because listen, if that works for you, that works for you. But I think you want to stick to your guns. I really do get a kick out of it. Here we are 11 years later, for me sort of becoming an online presence in the card community. And people still argue with me. And, time and time again, I go back and, I'll read an old thread and I'll sit there and read the comments and I kind of smile because obviously, what I said I thought would happen happened. And, what they said they thought would happen didn't. But, I got into one of these battles, unfortunately, a couple months ago when Collectible popped up, right? Evan Mathis and I, text. I've never spoken to him in person, but we text. And not so much as we used to, but we do. And so I was interested in that 53 tops mantle. I thought, hey, this sounds pretty neat. Well, I start threads on the PSA message board and Net 54 and just get roasted and said, listen, you guys don't understand something. This fractional ownership is going to change the game. It's going to open up the top end of the market to the low end of the market. And what's going to end up happening is it's going to drive the market up like crazy. I didn't necessarily know it'd go up to the extent it has, but they just did a revaluation of that 53 tops mantle, and of course, everybody on Net 54 was saying that the 2.5 million price tag was ridiculous and so on. They've already got it up 36%. That's a hell of a move in a short period of time. And I think one of the things that I thought made so much sense about that is like. So we talked when we started about some of these sort of speculative stocks that we play with, right? Like Riot Blockchain was the one we talked about. Their balance sheet is awful. The amount of revenues is like almost nothing, right? They have a history of doing secondary stock offerings like nobody else, okay? Well, when you buy that stock for a short window of time, you're just banking on the price rising. But do you want to get stuck with it? And, listen, that's up to the investor, I'm a registered person. Under no circumstances am I commenting on is Riot good or bad for the long term, but it's obviously been a hot stock. Well, when you buy a card, when you buy a Mike Tyson rookie, you at least feel good about the collateral. When you buy a 1953 tops Mickey Mantle and a PSA 10, that's one of the apex cards of the hobby. It's got to be in the top 10. So, it made total sense that if somebody's willing to sink money into Apple and Google and Riot Blockchain and so on, that they'd be willing to sink money into shares of Mickey Mantle. So I think at the end of the day, though, you just have to trust your gut because the biggest mistakes I've made in the hobby is just not trusting myself.
I love it. One of the things you said is you don't predict, right? And not many people are actually good at predicting. How would you get your edge? I'm a new investor. I have $10,000 in today's market. I can't predict. What advice would you give to someone coming into the hobby right now to get their edge?
Well, first of all, doing some research is really critical. I've seen some of the comments, Gary V's made about he did something like 40 hours of research before he, bought a card. And I don't know what the right number is, but I think, what I would do is I'd read message boards. I'd look at eBay completed sales. I'd look at population reports. I'd look at checklists, so we'll just use what I did. There's a website, wrestlingtradingcards.com, and they've got checklists of the wrestling sets. So what I would do is I'd go look at the checklist and try to find the farthest back card of XYZ star. And I'd start buying that card, right? Now, we are, the discovery phase of cards is long gone, right? Everybody sort of knows now what's out there, okay? So the best advice that I think I could give people is try to stay in your risk tolerance. So just for example, if you're buying a card that's gone up 20-fold, just know that it's up 20-fold. Could it go up another 20-fold? Perhaps. Okay. But it's, it's had a big move. And so you need to be aware that, in theory, it could certainly go down. Also stay in your budget, so just to give you an example, like if you've got $1,000 to burn, don't sink it into one card, put a few bets out there, because one of the nice things about cards, at least in my experience is man, when they move, and it doesn't have to be expensive. Like I collected Brock Lesnar, he's what got me into really the hobby again, specifically wrestling cards. They sat dormant for 10 years, right? And in just the last 2 weeks, somehow, miraculously, the market's awakened that, hey, Brock's got these badass 2004 football cards, and, they're up 10x like in 2 weeks, and, they're legit sales. I mean, just yesterday, you saw a Leaf Rookies and Stars numbered to 50 go for $1,000, okay? That card, I don't know, a year ago would have been like $70, $100, $150. So I think for me, what's worked for me is focusing on athletes that I like and that I can hold on to, because if Brock Lesnar cards go down, hey, guess what? He's my favorite athlete. When Hulk Hogan, let's go back 5-6 years ago, I had to ride through the Hulk Hogan racist comics, right? His cards dropped 50% overnight, like legitimately. And so that's something you have to always keep in mind with all the living stars, but really specifically, like take the NFL players, and I'm not picking on anybody, but they've got a high number of them that have been arrested. Keep that in mind, like when you're paying top dollar for a guy that maybe has a shady past, it can resurface. And if something goes the wrong way and they're kicked to the curb, they can drop instantly. I live here in Orlando, Florida, and I had a great time this year following the Tampa Bay Bucks. Right? They brought on what's the receiver?
Antonio Brown.
Yeah, Antonio Brown. Right? Like, so about 4 years ago, I'm on the Stairmaster at the gym, and I'm seeing this guy in the Steelers, and I'm watching his highlights, and I'm like, this guy is awesome. Right? He had so much. I'm going to use the word swagger. Like this guy, like he had it all, right? Well, within, I don't know, 2 months, he's not even on the team. So like his cards back then, I mean, they totally collapsed. And I have to admit the second they signed him, I was like, you know what? I kind of feel like doing a little speculating. So I got on eBay and, I was looking through his offerings. And I think, what's really happening is, most of us don't have like the only idea. Like, so 50 other people were thinking exactly what David was thinking, is saying, hey, let's get on eBay and let's buy these cards. So we're in a market now where information flow is just so rapid. And, getting that edge, I think really more has to do with trying to find deals, hey, if you sense somebody has something that you want, send them a message, and maybe they'll bite, maybe they'll cough something up and you can get it. But it's tough to find an edge at this point because the number of people chasing this stuff is skyrocketed.
With stimulus payments coming in, a little echoey, huh?
Yeah, it's a lot of echo. Can you hear me?
Yep. So with stimulus payments coming in, with lending and interest rates at an all-time low, how much, and this is across all assets, we're not just talking about sports cards here, How much are you looking at that, and how much are you preparing? I don't want to use the word bubble, but there's a lot of money out there, and the average person who might have had 100,000 to invest last year, now they got a stimulus payment. Now they can bet on margin. Now they maybe have a credit line at the bank, so they're 100,000, maybe now 500,000. And a lot of people say this is a lot like the 99.com bubble. So I'm curious to hear your take on that.
Well, I read a lot about the stimulus checks. I would just say this, I'm not going to get a stimulus check. If you make decent money, you're not getting one. So I think, when I'll read these comments about the high end of the market moving because of stimulus checks, and I think that's complete lunacy. Now, I will say cheap money can certainly drive the market. Now, let's kind of dissect this for a second. So we get to the young person that doesn't have and I guess in theory, old people wouldn't either, but let's just say you're 25 and you're a sneakerhead and you got into the flip game, right? You get $1,000 or whatever the number is. I mean, that money's instantly going to Robinhood or it's instantly going to cards. You're going to try to 5X it. And one of the things I've found is, the early 20s, I mean, they're really, really serious about being entrepreneurs and trying to make money off their money, which I applaud, right? But when you start looking at the top of the market, I think what the real issue is so I've been in financial services for 20 years. I've been a registered advisor, and this is my 17th year. When the Fed took interest rates to zero, right? So let's say you have money in a money market fund in your brokerage account. It literally pays 0.01, okay? Almost insulting. They give you 1 basis point, I think, just as kind of here, we've got to give you a little toy with your Happy Meal, right? But it's almost zero. So historically in finance, the hurdle rate is something that really, really matters. And so if you go back, let's say 10 years ago, and a 10-year treasury was, almost 5%. Well, if you hold that for 10 years, you obviously take in almost 50% on your money, and then taxes, et cetera. So anything you buy that you hold for 10 years has to climb by 50% for you to really win. And then you have to put a risk premium on that and say, okay, well, if I can get 50% with no risk to make 100, there's some amount of risk I'm willing to take, right? But not that much. Well, when the hurdle rate is 0.01, it's very easy to say, okay, 3 years from now, if this thing just breaks even, I'm basically in the same spot. And I think that what's happened with cards, I've been investing for a long time. On a percentage basis, I've never touched anything that's gotten close to cards. I mean, look, I think there's a lot of other people out there that have a similar experience. I mean, I don't own any, but take a Tom Brady rookie card. That thing, if you compare Tom Brady rookie card, let's say to the S&P 500, since he came into the league, I mean, it's probably 3, 4, 5 times what the S&P did, and that might even be low, right? I mean, I'm just kind of throwing numbers out. I just know it's a massive outperformance. So it's definitely fueling the market. The challenge is you've got incredible amount of global debt. And what that's going to do is that's going to clamp down interest rates basically permanently. I've done the math for years. And, one of the things a lot of times I talk with clients about is, listen, we're going to approach 30 trillion. We're going to pass 30 trillion this year. Explain to me how we can have higher interest rates when we're a net borrower. It's just the math doesn't work, right? So I think you're seeing a lot of people that want to get money out of currency and into something else. Fixed income, pays very low if you're in high quality. And I think one of the other things about collectibles is you get to hold it, right? And so I have commented for years about the bragging rights associated with top level stuff. Okay. And, if you look at I guess it was probably 2 weeks ago when that mantle sold for $5.2 million. Well, it made headline news. I listened to, and excuse me if it wasn't on your show, but I think it was, that he said that he got an offer of $6 million that same day. And then he got another offer of $8 million the next day. And, he wants to keep it. Well, that guy Rob, one, he was on a lot of these shows. Two, everybody now knows this guy's rich enough to buy a baseball card. It's $5.2 million, which, that doesn't suck. And the reality of it is that, it's like art. And so I, for the longest time, talked about the 52 Tops mantle and how, you could take a hedge fund manager that makes billions of dollars and he can't get one. There's only 3 of them in a 10. There's only 6 of them in a 9. So you can have all the money in the world and you can't get it. And I think that kind of activity drives markets. And so I actually think that has more to do with the move we've seen. And I also think, when we talked a second ago about the 94 Miami Bumblebee, I mean, that guy had 70,000 likes and like 600 comments when I quit looking. I mean, that level of engagement, that level of people saying you're awesome, this thing's badass, that's worth something, And so I think that's what's driving the market.
So jumping in here, let me throw something out at you. Hopefully you can hear me. I don't hear much in the way of echo, but it is what it is. I look like
I can hear you great, by the way.
I'm ridiculous over here. I got these headphones on. I look like a spaceman. So, so my deal for you, for Luca Nation is this, right? So you're a wrestling card guy, and, you branch out in the whole deal, but not to make too much fun of you, but, you combine Deshaun Watson and Dwayne Johnson. You made him, Deshaun Johnson, which is great. Because it proves something. It proves don't chase outside your comfort zone, right? So David Peck here, he knows wrestling cards. He knows wrestling. He's put in the time. He's put in the hours. He's been on the boards. He's researched. He's done his due diligence. And he knows what's going to be good and what's not. We asked him a million times. When he was on our show 6 months and change ago, he told us, the next thing that's going to pop after the 82 Wrestling All-Stars was in 1985. And wow, were you right? I mean, wow, did you nail that, right? But you didn't say, hey, you know what? I know I'm a wrestling guy, but I think what's next is these Harry Potter cards. Or I think what's next is these stickers from soccer from across the pond. No. A lot of people make that mistake, right? And you're a trader. So talk to me about becoming good at a sector, knowing the stocks that trade in that specific sector, becoming an expert in that, and just sticking with that. And becoming kind of an ace, because I think that's an important lesson for our guys when they start thinking, wow, my basketball stuff is going down. I'm going to go chase that 20X and I'm going to go hunt for it in Pokemon without knowing anything. They can't tell a Squirtle from a Pikachu,
Well, this is a little bit tough to answer because in the stock market, I'm pretty much willing to trade anything. And so I have been, so I got into stocks in 1998. And so I'm really into technical analysis. I'm really into charts. And, listen, I mean, it's not a perfect science, right?
Yeah, but you don't trade, right? You don't say, hey, I made my money in this weed stock. So, hey, that ticker, Riot, that looks cool. I'm going to trade that because it's got a cool name. No, you actually do some research, right?
Well, I sort of.
I love it. No, okay,
no.
Throw it out the window, guys.
Well, no. Here's what I would say is that I watch the ticker tape, right? And so if you in all fairness, if you start seeing something blazing across the ticker tape, I'll look into it, right? So all right, so let's just say that the Riot, let's just use that as an example. Well, if Bitcoin's moving, there's only 2 stocks in the market that are tied to Bitcoin, so you maybe would jump on those. But I think your point's well taken that buying what you sort of know is a lot easier. And I think that at the end of the day, in wrestling, like I'm a legit fan. Now I don't really watch a lot of the new wrestling because admittedly it's so tough without fans. I go to like across this little lake. I'm doing this interview behind my parents' condo. They live down the street from us. And across this lake is the Orlando Armory, right? And I've seen young talent that, like turned out to be like some of the biggest stars in wrestling. And, so it's been a lot of fun. But the thing in all of this stuff is that it's really not that complicated. I mean, take the 86 Fleer Jordan. Like, that's been the card to own in basketball for like 25 years, right? So what ends up happening is the market gets bigger. The studs, they just get bigger, And so I think one of the things that what a lot of people are trying to make the mistake right now of doing is just constantly finding the next best thing. Like, okay, well, let me throw some money at this because I think it's going to pop. And with really no understanding of what they're buying and really no affinity to it, because the thing with cards is if you buy something you like, you can sit on it, right? And I think I know you specialize in, say, vintage baseball. Well, there's been periods of time where vintage baseball really didn't do much. But if you had I'll give you a good example. Like take the Ricky Henderson rookie. And man, I tell you what, I was disappointed to see this, but sevens, eights, nines. I mean, a 9 just went for like $5,000. Well, you could have sat on that Ricky Henderson 9 for 10 or 15 years, and it was like 300, 400, 500. But you had Ricky Henderson's rookie card. I mean, it's an unbelievable shot. I think it's one of the best looking baseball cards ever. I think even if you didn't like baseball, you could look at that picture and say, this guy is a stud. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the thing goes ballistic. So at the end of the day, bouncing around and just diving into stuff that you know nothing about may work a few times, but it's certainly a risky proposition.
What do you think about NFTs?
About what?
NFTs, non-fungible tokens, Top Shot, and some of those digital platforms.
So this is like a Bitcoin, but a small one?
Yeah, it's something that's like, for example, a lot of my friends who aren't into sports cards but love sports, they've been messaging me, what's going on with Top Shot. And Top Shot is digital moments that solve for kind of instant transfer of an asset. So, when I buy a card from you, you still have to ship it to me. If I buy off eBay, there's taxes. This allows for easy transfer instantly. Similar, it runs on a blockchain. It's not Bitcoin, it runs on a different blockchain. But you're seeing them now with soccer. So there's a thing called like So Rare is an NFT, and it's basically kind of a combination of or crossover of digital sports cards and cryptocurrency.
No, it's a tough call because admittedly, I'm not that informed on it. I think one of the things, so I was looking at doing a deal the last 2 days with somebody, and they had hit me up on Instagram about buying some cards, right? And I thought we were pretty close to doing a deal, and he was coming after one of my cards, and I tell you, I've never sold one of my top pops, if you will, and I was very close to doing so in the context of combining these cards, right? And so I started thinking about it. I'm like, gosh, I've never shipped anything this big in terms of money. How do I get paid? Like, is PayPal a good idea? The challenge with cards right now is when I used to buy something for $50 or $200 or $300, whatever number you want to use, there's not really a lot of risk. I mean, it's like, okay, if my money gets tied up for a few weeks and something goes awry, big deal. Well, now that you have a lot of stuff trading in the thousands and 100,000s and so on, I think people are going to get more creative. And so if what you're telling me allows for that, I think it's coming. And so, I'm just going to sort of dive off for a second, like back to that fractional ownership stuff, right? Like, who would have thought of that 5 years ago? When I put that on Net 54, 80% of those guys said, oh, I want to own the card. I want to handle it and stuff. And listen, I get that, right? But there's also a lot of people that realize, man, I don't have the money to buy a Jordan 10. So, but if I could put $1,000 in a Jordan 10, I'll give that a shot. And so I think that the creativity with this sort of new world we're in, where we have a digital economy and we've got so much. I mean, online presence. Think about the growth of this show. If it wasn't for Instagram, if it wasn't for Twitter, I would argue your show would never be as big as it is.
You're 100% right.
So,
it's a social media flex, right? So, I mean, we're talking about the fractional ownership 5 years ago when there wasn't this stuff. And more importantly, there wasn't the publicity and the celebrity money in it. So I will tell you 5 years ago when fractional ownership came out, I was like, I don't want to do that. All right, so they're going to sell a Mickey Mantle PSA 9 fractional ownership. All right. Well, instead of me putting $1,000 into that, I'm going to put $1,000 into a Mickey Mantle PSA 2. You know what I mean? I'd rather I'm still going to get 10 grand in, but it's just going to be, instead of being a 10, it's a 2. Here's where it changed, right? Nobody's flexing the 2, but people are flexing the 9, people are flexing the 10. And more importantly, celebrities are not going to come after my 1 or 2. They're going to come after the 9s and the 10s. So there's actually more upside in those top end cards. You've seen it yourself with some of the high end 82 wrestling all stars and some of the cards you have. People coming out of the woodworks. I'm not going to call them out, but I guarantee you have, and you tell me I'm wrong, you have celebrities, you have some big names probably sliding into your DMs asking you for some of your cards. I'm sure of it.
Well, I'm not going to name his name because it's not appropriate. But yeah, this guy is a celebrity.
You put a screenshot on Facebook.
Hey, let's not. I put it on Facebook, but let's not put it on.
You put a screenshot on Facebook, Peck. Listen to my guy. Listen to Andrew. Look at this guy. He's not taking that bull. You put it out there,
well,
man.
Well, first of all, Andrew's on my Facebook, and I appreciate that. I actually was shocked. Okay, so I'm sitting there, and I was, because honestly, so I used to post a lot on Facebook with politics, right? And I'd make my comments and all that stuff, and that shit's just a waste of time, because what ends up happening is inevitably somebody's gonna take issue with what you have to say, and now 45 minutes later, you've gone back and forth, and nobody's changed their mind. Okay, so what I do on Facebook, because I probably 90% of my posts are card related, just for fun, right? But so anyway, with this guy sent me a direct message, I was like, WTF, I said, whoa, and so but I ended up I talked to him last night for about an hour, because going through messages is not very easy, and we were going back and forth this morning, and it just, the deal's not going to work out, and whatever. But the thing is that here's the issue. He only wanted 10s. Okay. And one of the things I was trying to explain to him, I said, listen, bro, in wrestling, you got to understand, I mean, the population totals of these in 10s are incredibly low. Okay. Like, it's just a different animal. And, back in the day when it was a really, really small niche, there was a handful of us that were willing to pay a lot for them, but not many, right? But you get a situation where, the number of wrestling card collectors is probably up like 50-fold. And that's honestly no exaggeration. It's and I think the real question is, okay, how long do they stay for? We'll see. I mean, time will tell. But he didn't have any interest in 9s. And a 9 on so many cards is like awesome. Right? I mean, like, let's not kid ourselves. And the 10s, they're few and far between. And so, anyway, it just didn't work out. But I think what's happening is you're basically circling back to what I was saying about the bragging rights. Like, if a celebrity gets, and I think a Mantle too, first of all, that's an unbelievable card. So congratulations. But, they're not going to, if they've got the means to show a $5.2 million card, that's a lot cooler, and a lot more status than a 2. It is what it is. But the difference is that I would argue any 52 tops Mantle is a flex, because that is, it's the best baseball card in the last 70 years, or 70 or 69 or whatever number we're at, bar none. There is no better card. And I read these comments over the years, like, well, what's going to happen when these old people die? Well, guess what? There's going to be somebody that's 40 or 50 that says, I want that. That's American history. It's American art. A Mantle is a Mantle. But your point's, very well taken, that in this social media phenomenon, showing the nice stuff works. I mean, look at me. I got on Twitter at 0 followers, right? And I don't have that many. I got maybe 1,000, but that started at 0. And it's organically grown just simply by showing cards that, a lot of people think are neat. And now actually gravitated probably for the last year. I don't really tag any pages. Maybe I tag Hogan, but I don't tag pages. So I'm getting organic viewers and just trying to get the post to kind of move on their own. I do it on Instagram, maybe I've had, 150 likes, so it's not like I don't get the attention that somebody like that does. But when a celebrity looks at my page and says, whoa, this guy's, showcasing some serious stuff, it's good.
I love it. Here's the question of the day. Everybody's favorite part. You called the 85 wrestling all stars. You called the 85 tops wrestling. You called the Opeaches. What are you looking at now?
I ain't gonna excite anybody, but nothing.
Well, but that's important, right? It's important for people to hear that.
Well, no, here's the thing. I've told you guys, Brock Lesnar is my favorite athlete, right? So I'm always looking for Brock cards. And I guess my comment, nothing's not fair. I look at the market every single day. I mean, I'm a junkie for this stuff like you guys are. I look at it nonstop. But as far as, hey, what am I trying to buy? It's nothing new. I'm staying in the sphere that I'm in because, I don't know, maybe a month ago, I got some grades back on the Carnation set. I upgraded my Road Warriors to an 8.5. And, some people would think, 8.5, that's nothing, right? Well, it's the highest graded. There's only 7.8s. I mean, you're talking about extreme condition sensitivity. So my goal, honestly, is to just constantly sort of try to improve what I've already been working on. I just don't have, I get contacted all the time. Oh, what do you think of the modern wrestling? Well, I'm just not that interested. I got hit up 2 days ago, and I guess the female wrestler is like one of the best. I didn't even know who she was. They're like, hey, do you think this one of one's a good buy? I don't know who she is. So I don't really try to get into anything that I don't understand. And, I'm just at this point, I'm trying to upgrade what I have. And, I take a lot of people, think the set registry's stupid. I get that, right? But, my goal, honestly, was to try to be the best. I wanted to have the best. And so at the end of the day, if I can somehow improve, the sets I have, I will. But I haven't branched out into anything else. Back in time, I, did a little dabbling in baseball and stuff again. But, I just felt at the time that my resources were better spent on what I wanted to do. So my advice, if it's worth anything, is, find something you like and focus on that. Get good at it. Like I saw your baseball cards the other day. You're an expert. Yep. So, it's awesome. Like Ty
It's
Cobb.
fun stuff. I got my Ty Cobb, I got the baseball, but you know what my last purchase was? I used eBay bucks, so it wasn't a huge one, but I'm going to show you, and then you get to talk about it. All right. I used my eBay bucks on this. So tell the audience what I'm showing you here.
That's a 91 Impel. But here's the thing. I'll tell you this right now. This is why I say that most people have been terrible at predicting this stuff. Okay. If you told me that PSA 10s and that set would be like selling like hotcakes for $100, I would have never believed it. Right.
Yep.
And so I don't know what you paid for that, but it's like it's hot on the low end of wrestling. How much was that?
$42 or something like that. I think I paid total.
Believe it or not. So, all right. So one of the reasons that I've done well with cards is I was pretty financially minded the whole time. I made registry buys where I kind of threw money after, low pop cards that have extreme risk, right? People that have followed me on Instagram or maybe not so much Instagram, but on the message boards knows I got an identical twin. And so years ago, my twin Bill, he was like, Dave, what are you doing paying $2,000 for some bum in a PSA 10? He's like, that makes absolutely no sense. He's like, put that $2,000 into the stars. And so I did, so I stopped buying a lot of the registry cards. And, the 83 All-Stars, like, I'm very friendly with Joey Graben, but he's like half a point behind me. Well, anyway, that said, when you buy a box like that for $42, the odds of you making money are incredibly good, right? So I think one of the things that I've done over the years is I back myself in to these set, like I'll buy let's say.
Is that a Junkyard Dog behind you, by the way? Is that JYD? Junkyard Dog? Is he behind you?
JYD in the background. Yep.
Nice.
Yep. Well, we got a little barking, right? So I will back myself into a box like that. So I'll go to eBay, right? And so let's say a Sting and a 10 is $40 and a Ric Flair is $79.99. Well, I say to myself, let me get this straight. If I pull 2 cards out of here, okay, and send them to get graded, I've paid for the entire box. So those are good economics, right? So I think that's the thing that I could teach people is that, you back your way into this stuff. You look at, all right, what's my break-even point? What is it going to take for me to get into the black? And at $42, I mean, you could probably sell all those cards raw. Like, let's say you just don't like them. You could put that on eBay for $50 and just get your money back, and you had fun.
How's the shoulder recovery coming?
Well, I don't know if you guys can tell, but you can see that, and my arms are a lot smaller than they used to be, but look how small this one is compared to this one, right? I mean, it's like, look at that. It's not even funny. And it's, my mom is, and I'm recording this outside their house, my biggest cheerleader. And so, I used to be like, oh, this looks bad. She says, no, Dave, it looks good. The other day when I showed her, she goes, oh, wow. I guess they are, so the shoulder recovery, I had, and it's real. I unfortunately, I tore this pec right here, and it's never going to look the same. And I don't know if it's ever going to, behave the same. And then I had a labrum tear, and it was a slap tear too. So, I mean, it's off the bone. They've got to bolt it back in. So I'm a little over four months and a week out of surgery. It's coming along pretty good. I think the challenge is that, I don't know if you can see, it gets super tight right here. And so I got asked this question the other day, and it was actually my mom that gave me the information. But somebody was like, Dave, how you doing? And I said, look, I found out that the quarterback for Clemson, he had the same injury I had. And I got to tell you something. They're saying it's 4 to 6 months for full recovery. I think that's probably realistic. I hope for his sake that he can fully recover, because I had surgery on the same shoulder 8 years ago, and it was never the same. I think this time, he did a nice job. I'm very hopeful that I'm going to be able to get back to more full force workouts in the coming weeks. We'll see. But it's just, anybody that's had shoulder problems know it sucks. And, physical therapy is awful. And, I'm a real skinny guy by nature. I just don't have big genetics. And so I've worked out since I was 14. And, it was real bummer because in February, I was really in the best shape of my life. Best muscle density, lowest body fat, really was real pleased with where I was at. I mean, working out's my passion. I put in a lot of time over the years and to training, and, being a natural lifter, I've never taken steroids. And so it really limits your upside. But what you have to do is you just stay in your lane and work your ass off. And so I'm really hopeful in the next maybe 6 weeks that I should be able to really start to hit it hard, and we'll go from there. And I do appreciate you asking me, because, the past 6 months been really trying.
Well, you give us a headline, a title for our episode. David Peck tears his pec. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. You know, I mean, you really can't do it. But listen, I'm gonna rapid fire a couple ones out there for you. I mean, so I held up, guys, just so you know, because I mean, this is second nature. I bought a box of 1991 WC World Championship Wrestling WCW cards with Sting and Missy Hyatt on the cover of the box. And I just looked on eBay really quick, and there's a box for $49.99. So it's not like I got some kind of steal on this box. But it's one of those things where there are Sting, Flair, there are the guys from WCW, and their PSA 10 cards, as David said. You know, they're going up, right? So so that's the box. Rapid fire. Have you sold anything over the last year from your your PC that you regret?
Oh yeah. We touched on it earlier. I sold 2 Dwayne Johnsons and the 94s, and one of them was a BGS 95. Now it was in the oversized holder, and it was actually the first BGS graded copy. It had been in the hobby for since I want to say 2000. You know, I mean, it had been maybe 2001. Very old card in the hobby, right? So when I bought it for $1,000, it tanked to 400. You know, when it went up at 2,200, I thought I was stealing, and you know that obviously is not the case. So then the prices rocketed even higher, and you know, so one of the things that, you know, I collect cards. My wife's all into purses and shoes and jewelry and stuff. And so, you know, I sound like Vegas Dave, but I bought her a Birkin bag last year, which is kind of the ultimate for chicks. And, you know, to get an Hermes Birkin, you've got to they got to call you. So what these are, I mean, they are legitimately, it's almost like getting into an IPO of a hot stock, because the second you take delivery, it's worth more money. So
I bought one for my wife, actually. I bought it on eBay. It was like $275.
What was?
It was a Birkin bag. It was a nice Birkin, chromium, the whole 9 yards. Really, really nice Birkin bag. I mean, it's spelled Berken, right? Birken.
Yeah. So you bought a Chinese version. You didn't buy the French version. So what ended up happening is, so she ends up buying, you know, so I said, okay, so I buy her this purse, and I was like, damn, you know, it's not cheap. So, not 2 months later, oh, Dave, you know, I want a black one. I was like, you gotta be shitting me. And so I was like, okay, I'm not doing this. So I ended up selling a couple cards, and one of them was a Dwayne Johnson 9. And, you know, once again, I think I'm doing well. And, you know, I hit record price at the time, and I'm scared to look at the recent sales of the 9s, because I think it might be 6 times what I sold it for, right? So yeah, I definitely I regret that. But I think one of the things that you've got to keep in mind is that, you know, when you jump on horses, you have other horses in the game, you know, so it's like, all right, cool. Like, I'm upset about that. Well, guess what? My PSA 10, the signed copy I still have, those things skyrocketed, right? So, you know, maybe you don't capture it all. It's kind of like a stock where maybe you didn't get it all. I think the difference is when you physically own something for like 5 or 6 years, and then you sell it and it skyrockets within like a month or 2 after you sell it, it's not a good feeling.
Well, listen, I'll make you feel better, right? Because remember, I bought 2 wrestling cards. I bought the Flair PSA 10 and the Andre 1973 PSA 10, and I sold them right before. I don't even want to know what those cards are worth now. I don't even want to know.
Well, we don't have any comps, so I can't give you any bad news.
I don't even want to know. But the point that you're making, which I love, is, you know, you made your money on it, right? I mean, you made your profit, you held it for a while, you made your money, and you most likely were able to roll that money into something else. You were able to, you know, buy something else that's probably also gone up. And that's the deal, man. Take your wins. You know, don't sell everything. You know, you're making your money. You got other stuff out there. You still have the autograph versions of it. And, you know.
I still have the 10. I still have the 10. So, you know, the thing is like, you know, let's not pretend. I mean, when I saw the picture on Instagram and Twitter, I was like, thank you. This is great.
It's amazing. So talk to me about that card. I mean, there are wrestling guys out there who would tell me that, you know, if they were here and they had the chance to talk to you directly, they would say that tuna fish card is not the one to go after for The Rock. that there are other better cards on that. Does it surprise you that that perforated college football card is the one that has kind of flown for a wrestler, for someone who, you know, is known as a wrestler? When he really wasn't
not
a
at
great
all.
football player? So talk to me about
Not at all, because I think the thing about it is that, first of all, the production level is somewhere between 3,000 and 3,500, right? That is established. They handed them out at the Orange Bowl on a rainy night. The only reason there's even nice copies in the hobby is somebody found a box of sheets. So if you look at the PSA population report, it exploded all at the same time, because somebody found some nice ones. But the people at the game, those didn't survive in say pristine condition. But the other reason I don't think so is in 1994, I mean, think about what's going through Dwayne Johnson's head. He's in college. He's not the star. He has no idea where he's going. I think a lot of people forget that, his dad was a star in wrestling, but he was a journeyman star, right? And this is before, people made millions and millions of dollars. I mean, Rocky Johnson was, popular to a degree, but he wasn't pulling in the bucks like Hulk Hogan, I mean, and actually, in 1984, when Rocky Johnson and Tony Atlas were tag team champions, that was kind of like the last hurrah for his career. And then he went on the independent scene. Okay. Well, that doesn't pay a lot. So they were not like, Rock wasn't living on easy street. So I think what it really boils down to is it's his first appearance on a card, and it's a low supply of available copies sort of in general. And I just think it plays into his story. I mean, this guy, it's easy to forget when he came into wrestling, he got booed like the first, couple weeks. I mean, they were booing him unmercifully. And The Rock, while, he obviously is in tremendous condition today, when he came into wrestling, he was thick, but he still had real bad gyno. He had to have, he had surgery, is my understanding, on his nipples from the, what they call bitch tick. That's obviously steroid use. He was, carrying a lot of extra weight.
Andrew, look up. It's called gynecomastia. Take a look. It's a medical term.
I don't want to look that up, yo. I don't want to look that
up. But so I mean, he didn't. But then what happened is, like, and it took The Rock probably 2 years, and I'll never forget when he was in the Nation of Domination. I mean, he starts cutting these promos where you're like, dude, this guy is awesome. And then when you transition into 99 and 2000, I joke about this. So, I'm a lifelong wrestling fan, obviously, but, in 99 and 2000, I was sort of in my prime. I was like, fresh out of high school and, in college and it was really, things were going pretty good. Right. Well, so, I was hanging out with, different chicks and stuff, and they'd say, well, what do you want to do tonight? It's Monday night. I say, hey, we're watching wrestling. So, if you want to hang out, we got to watch wrestling. So that's how much people were into that. I mean, that Attitude Era was like the bomb. So I think what it does is it predates that. You look at his 97 products. I don't want to, under any circumstance, cut those down. I think there's a great case for those. They're his first wrestling cards. And I think there's a case for both, and you're going to see, you've seen big prices for the 97 Cardinal. I always mention my good friend Rob England. He just discovered the 97 Panini stickers, and there's some nice Rocky Maivia material in there. He, one of the things, if you saw going across the top of the screen, he's sending one of his 10s to Golden. He's going to put that baby on the big stage. So you're going to see a Rocky card at some point in the Golden auction that, and it's going to get attention. So I think there's room for both. But I do think at the end of the day, the best card's the 94 because it's The Rock before he was The Rock.
Well, it's the one Darren Rovell likes, so that's all that matters. So that's the key.
Whatever. Yeah, the thing about Darren is I like the fact that he promotes the hobby. I think it's great. but he puts out a lot of bad information. And when you correct him on the bad information, he doesn't want to hear it.
Well, none of us do. Andrew corrects me all the time, and I tell him he's wrong, even though I know he's right. Because he's right way more often than I give him credit for. But it is what it is. So you're not going to give me what you're looking at now because you want to keep that secret close to the vest.
No, I'm not. I don't have any. I would tell you.
Just
listen,
playing with you.
Yeah. I told you guys last time what I was looking at, and it obviously worked. So.
Yeah, no, 100%. So one of the other areas, and we can leave it with that. One of the other areas you mentioned to us last time, I loved it. The rotten cards, the Donald Trump cards. Are you selling your Trump cards? You keeping your Trump cards? You waiting for him to make another run at the presidency in 4 years? What's going on with your political collection?
So I do have two of the Trumps, and I tell you, it was fun. I gave my twin brother Bill one for Christmas, some years back or whatever. And he was like, when they ran up, he's like, he was wanting to get a new TV. And he's like, are you okay with me selling this? I said, dude, hit the bid, bro. Listen, have at it, right? It ain't going to hurt my feelings. Actually, it makes me feel good that I gave you a Christmas present that skyrocketed in value. But no, so what was interesting is the night of the election, the Trump card did really well. A couple copies sold. Couple weeks later, you had some sales. I think that the market now is in a standstill. I haven't looked, I sort of check in periodically, but no, I'm not selling those. I mean, I think one of the things that I like is unique cards. I think the Trump rookie is very unique. The signed copy, there's no PSA DNA red copies. It's the only known blue copy. And, love him or hate him, Donald Trump is going to go down in history as an American president, but also, just one of the most fascinating Americans ever. I wasn't surprised that, he lost the election. I get it that there's a lot of heat, like some people think it was stolen. A lot of people just hate the guy, whatever. But, one of the things that I found is I think controversy creates cash. So, you're looking at that 91 WCW product. Eric Bischoff coined that phrase, that controversy creates cash. So I just don't think that Trump, he's going to have his base. It's not going to go away. It is his rookie card. It's not that expensive, like relatively speaking. And, maybe he makes a comeback, maybe he doesn't. But I really, I enjoyed Trump being the president. It was a nice change for me. I'm not going to turn this political, but, I'm not a Barack Obama fan. And so I got 4 years of reprieve from that, which was exciting. So I'm holding them for the long term. If they go up, great. If they go down, oh, well. I actually think personally, though, that they're gonna stay up, and I actually think they're probably going to go up more. And if they do, fantastic. If they don't, I'm not too worried about it. But one of the things people have got to understand is that there are folks out there that absolutely love Trump and absolutely hate Trump. So when you have that kind of dichotomy of interest, it creates a fire. It creates interest, One of the things I don't remember if I said this on the show that time, but Bill had a party at his house and he had the Trump card on display. He also I've given him 2 cards. I gave him an 85 Topps blue signed PSA DNA Hulk Hogan, right? So both of these have skyrocketed. He's a happy guy. So we go into this room and the responses were unbelievable. People were triggered. They had to leave the room. Other people were like, dude, that thing
I love it.
Bad as shit. I love it, right? So when you have that kind of response, to me, it's a good recipe for a collectible because you have people that hate it, so it catches attention, and you have people that love it, it catches attention, and it's a centerpiece. It's a talking piece. I mean, instantaneously, it was like, oh my God, I can't believe you have that on display. Dude, Bill, that thing is so awesome. That's a good recipe for a collectible.
I love it, man. Listen, I don't think we can do better than that. Polarizing, right? We had Blake Jameson, one of the top 2020 artists on. That's one of the things he taught me. So you're 100% right. I look for that in the stuff that I buy. It's stuff that people are either going to love or hate. Hopefully more of them love it because then maybe more will buy it. But believe it or not, people who hate stuff buy it too. So it's interesting stuff. Dave, we love having you on. I apologize for some of the technical issues with the headphones and the echo and stuff like that. But, you've been great, man. We appreciate you having you on, and a lot more people are going to hear you this time around.
Dave, we had Eric Bischoff off. We had Eric Bischoff on.
I saw that.
Yeah, interesting guy.
Well, the thing about Bischoff is that love him or hate him, he was on the ground floor. He helped transition wrestling, and the Attitude Era in the WWF at the time wouldn't be possible if it wasn't for Eric Bischoff. Vince had to respond.
Yep, change the game. Got to give him a little bit of credit. I don't want to give him as much as he might give himself. He was very honest about that. He'll give himself all the credit. But I mean, we talk about the Monday Night Wars, and we talk about the Attitude Era, and we talk about what wrestling is today. And obviously that lit a fire under Vince. So
I'd love to make the introduction if you'd like, David. He's working.
We're good. I mean, the only comment I guess I have is that the biggest handcuff wrestling has today is social media, because back then you didn't have all these people being like, I can't believe that she's wearing that. Oh, that's sexist. That's discrimination. I mean, when you get on Twitter, the wrestling fans are really pathetic. I mean, it drives me berserk because it's like, dude, just enjoy the show. Like, not everything has to be so serious. But
it's funny you should say that, man. I got a coworker who listened to the Bischoff thing, and he's like, I'm going to have my son watch the wrestling from the 90s. And he puts them on, he goes, that's not safe for kids. He goes, yeah, they can't watch that. He goes, what X-Pac is doing with his nether region. He goes, you can't, this is what some of these women are wearing. I can't show this to a kid. And so it's funny you bring it up. Somebody literally just talking about this today.
Yeah, wrestling today is, it's like you go back to let's say the WCW days, and they had like kids story, like unadulterated kid stories. They slapped women. Like if you go to ECW, like some of these guys, I mean, they did jumping off the top ropes and power bombing chicks. If you did that today, there might even be like a congressional investigation, like, to shut you down. I mean, we've reached a point of cancel culture that's just so terrible. And in wrestling, I think Vince knows that, and they try their best to stay inside the lines. I am happy that AEW popped up because, at the end of the day, AEW, you need competition, and WWE can't be the only game in town. It's good for the performers. It's good for it all. So, but yeah, wrestling is really tough these days just because of Twitter.
I love it, man. We thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. And we'll, maybe when we get to 200,000 listens, we'll get you back again. Should happen in next week. Thanks, Dave. We appreciate it.
Thank you for spending some time with us on another episode of the Lucas, Tigers, and Bronze Oh My podcast. Do us a favor and like, subscribe. You know what? Don't just like and subscribe. Everybody does that. If you like us, tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your enemies, tell everybody. And we hope you got something from spending some time with us today, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.